And you know how you know you're doing the right things, Tracy? It's like throughout the ordeal, and even before and after the hearing, which I'll talk about in a sec. But we were not alone in this fight.
Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Tracy.
Good,
Always
good.
good to see you.
Very good to see you too.
Yeah.
And you got a lovely room, 35th floor of a luxury hotel.
Mandarin Oriental. It's always a treat staying here. I swear it works wonders for mental clarity, even if you're working here all day.
Oh yeah.
It's so different. It's so lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like Tokyo Tower, but I like Mount Fuji, and so I think either way, you feel kind of spoiled, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Feels
Yeah.
good. So
Any side of the hotel is a world-class view.
yeah. So we're in Tokyo, and for people who are listening overseas, we're in Tokyo. You were here for the Cybersecurity Summit with Jonathan Wasaya,
Yep.
and I'm going to try to get him in this trip too as well.
Oh, nice. You should.
Yeah. He's got some really compelling stories on cybersecurity. So, but we met a couple years ago, and you had a great story. I don't want to bury the lead, but I want to get to know you a little first because we've only met at conferences, so I've never got a chance just to sit down and talk, right?
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about DreamHost. We can talk about SoundCloud later, but
Yeah, sure. So, I am Chris. I live and work in Los Angeles. Uh, I am a attorney by trade, but I think that's a very limited statement in terms of all the stuff that we do. But yeah, my main day job is I am the general counsel of a company called DreamHost. So DreamHost is a website design, domain name, and cloud company. We've been around for 25 years. So the company was started by four college friends, and they were graduating together, got a little kind of side project going, and 25 years later, it turned into this behemoth of a company. So been around for a while. Our headquarters are in California, and we tell people that we like to help them own their digital presence, and so we help you get a website going, get online social media presence, own a domain name, help you troubleshoot things that come up with your website. Basically, giving you, as a person or a businessman or woman, the opportunity to kind of concentrate on growing your business and not really think about the work and effort that needs to be put into being online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the age, like in the very beginning, when if you like, let's say you own a company and you're doing construction or something, and you're very good at building a building, right?
Yeah.
And very good at keeping up to code and all that stuff. Now you got to be a web designer.
Yeah.
Or you got to pay somebody an insane sum of money, and it's just for people who are into a trade or who are not technically savvy, maybe between generations or something, right?
Yeah.
It's just a big black hole, and they're throwing money into it. And so to allow people to have this opportunity to have their own digital presence is a golden opportunity, right?
Absolutely. And I think in a day and age where when everyone has the Instagrams, the Facebooks, I think you somewhat end up getting washed out among everybody else because everybody has the same exact cookie cutter template and look to their website and their presence, right? To their social media. So what better way to stand out and give customers and friends the opportunity to really see who you are by putting up a personal website, right? And just having your own design, having your own flair, your own features. I think it really helps. I mean, like you said, there are companies out there that don't have websites, or they've like a restaurant, for example, right? And all they maybe use is Yelp. But
oh boy,
yeah,
that's a dangerous proposition. Like you get a couple bad reviews, and it's
certainly, yeah.
And it's not over, but it's not good,
right? Yeah. But imagine being able to put your own design up, your own menu, your own reservation system, not have to rely on a third party, especially in a time when third parties are clamping down quite a bit on content, on restrictions, on costs and fees. I mean, you're at the mercy of these giant companies, right? And so if anything happens, your content's gone.
We were talking before we started recording, and I do YouTube as well. And thankfully, my content is very vanilla. How to use chopsticks, how not to use chopsticks. A crazy video, the shortest escalator in the world. I went there and I tried to find a way to make it interesting because the escalator takes like 2 seconds.
That's amazing.
and it's in Kawasaki.
Oh, okay.
It's just like maybe half hour from here where we are right now. But thankfully, my content is very vanilla. And I don't face demonetization or strikes or anything. In fact, we were talking about this earlier. I make music as well, and I was doing my own music because I thought if I borrow something, even a second, I can get a copyright strike, and then that means you can't monetize, et cetera, et cetera. So I started just making. Well, I'd always made music, so I just made my own music.
Nice. There you go.
Then I found out about royalty-free music, so that's another story. But but thankfully, my content's very vanilla. I don't worry about getting taken down or demonetized or canceled.
Sure.
But I think if somebody wants to be a little more edgy, they could face that. And it's not just this may not be the main topic, but like it's not just the content. If I want to talk about something controversial, or if I want to have a payment system, if I want to sell merch, people sell T-shirts for their show, for their YouTube channel, and if it's something controversial, the payment processor can say like, "Oh, you can't use our system anymore," and then your business just one day they just flip the switch, and the revenue stops.
Exactly.
So,
and especially now with so much content being available online, tens of thousands of tidbits of info that hit us through our phones every day. I mean, I think people want to hear interesting conversations, right? And sometimes you want to push the envelope and have open talks about certain things in life. And if you have to risk, being censored, which actually leads a little bit to what we were talking about with the Department of Justice, which we'll get to later. But if you don't have the freedom to express yourself, to read things, to talk about things, then I don't think that's a world I want to live in.
That's right. And both of us being lawyers, having taken, your first semester of law school or second semester, you take con law, constitutional law, you go over the Bill of Rights, you go over the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, freedom of speech. I mean, if we don't have that, what do we have?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very true.
All right. Thanks for the interview. No. But I mean, both of us being lawyers, and once again, anything that we say on this show is not going to be legal advice. It's just, I'm just talking. Just talking.
Was it Chatham House rules? Like, this is not the employer's point of view. No legal advice. Please don't call us afterwards.
Yep. Exactly. And it's funny being a lawyer. Like I've put that in my signature line quite a lot, right? But it's just, and I keep a Word document. So if I write something on Quora, I will copy and paste that in there. This is not legal advice. This does not constitute a attorney-client relationship.
Right.
If you have a question, go consult a local attorney who's versed in your local law. So disclaimer's over. Yeah. Let's get to the good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So can we just get into it? So you got out of law school in what, 2015?
Yeah, I passed the bar in 2015.
Okay.
And hit the ground running. So I was with DreamHost while I was in law school. So I was lucky enough to land the internship my second year in law school. Started working for the company. Really enjoyed the crossover of law and tech. And so from there, I got a job offer with the company, started growing there. And 2015, I was barred. So it was December 2015, which was actually a really good birthday present for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing, I was in LA at the time. No, I had just left LA. I left in 2014.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that has nothing to do with the story. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
But, okay. So you get barred in 2015.
Yeah.
You're a DreamHost. And at that time, so you went from intern to employee and then eventually general counsel, right? So
That's right. Yeah. So I went from an intern to a clerk to the deputy GC, general
Okay.
counsel, to general counsel. And
Okay.
that was from, started working there in 2013, and I was appointed as the GC in 2016,
Okay.
mid 2016.
And for the non-lawyers in the crowd, what is a GC? What do they do?
Sure, GCs run the legal team. So that's the formal title. You are the head of the legal team of a company, and just for people who may not have the legal background, there are usually two types of attorneys we talk about. There are
Mm,
in-house counsel, which are attorneys that work in a company,
mm,
and then there are outside counsel or
mm,
law firm attorneys who are with a law firm who have clients that they serve that you usually hear about, when they take care of like cases or those are outside counsel.
okay.
So GCs in-house, you are in charge of the legal team.
Mm,
But these days, GCs are so much more than just the legal person in a company. And I think that's why I'll be celebrating my 10th year at
mm,
DreamHost this May, because if it were only a mundane legal job, I don't think I would have stayed
mm.
here this long.
Yep.
It's much more, and we can certainly talk about that. But
Sure, sure.
it encompasses so many different things in terms of long-term strategy of the company,
Mm,
growth and corporate development,
yeah.
a lot of client relations, a lot of international expansion, international laws, tons of
Mm.
data privacy and cybersecurity. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it encompasses so much, and I think that variety really keeps me
Mm,
going, and I absolutely love that.
mm. I've known a lot of people from my law school who they were maybe a technical person, like you were describing, technical plus law, or myself speaking Japanese plus law. That's what got me into antitrust, by the way,
Oh,
was
okay,
speaking Japanese.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
I never planned a career in antitrust, and it just I was an intern at the prosecutor's office in Detroit, so I got. They give you time, like the first day if you want to, they'll let you go to court.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and you have to have an attorney supervising you. And for me, what that meant was like scheduling conferences and things like that. Okay, oh, Your Honor, yes, okay, we'll schedule to next week. Thank you very much.
Mm.
Have a pleasant day. Thank you. But you're on record.
Oh, yeah.
But I got all this criminal law experience just like 1 year. But that's a baptism by fire.
Oh, yeah.
You can be in court every day. You're seeing every kind of crazy case you can imagine. Thankfully, I worked in the auto theft unit, which handled, for some crazy reason, because they dealt with the DMV or the Secretary of State, the Driver's License Bureau, they dealt with identity fraud,
Oh, okay.
and that was so fun.
Oh, I
And
can imagine.
we got
Yeah.
into the forensics and things like it was crazy, and we got into insurance fraud. So we were doing more. The police are doing the investigation, but we're processing the forensics.
Right. Right.
And so when I get out of law school and I go to work, um, and somebody called me up, and I had there it was the big layoff of like 2008, and I started teaching online, you know,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was teaching an online course, and that was great. Um, but somebody called me up and said, "Have you ever done any discovery?"
Hmm.
And I was like, "Discovery Channel, what?" And we covered it in evidence and things like that. And he trained me, and it was so fun.
Mm.
And it was a patent infringement case, but you needed Japanese language, and I did really well at that. I went through everything really quickly and really enjoyed it. And then somebody called me up and said, "Hey, we got this uh, antitrust case. What do you know about antitrust law?"
Mm.
And I'm on my computer googling, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, Sherman Act, cool." Like, okay, you're in. And so they hired me to work on a price fixing case,
Oh, okay.
which brought me to LA, which brought me to Japan,
Oh,
and
that's
and
interesting.
it was, yeah. So enough about me.
Mm.
I'm sick of talking about me. I talk to myself all the time. So like,
No, it's super interesting stuff.
but so yeah, so I'm more like the outside counsel. So when when somebody has business basically based in Japan, and then they are selling into the stream of selling into the stream of commerce in America, which puts them under the jurisdiction of American law. Under, was it Bridgestone? Right? I think it was.
So I'm not sure.
Okay. And I'm not a law geek. I'm a grunt in the trenches rather than a law geek. But you're putting products into the stream of commerce into the U.S., puts you into the jurisdiction of U.S. law, the DOJ, the FBI, all these nice guys, and then and then all your documents need to be turned over to opposing counsel, which means you have millions of documents in Japanese that almost nobody in America can read.
Right.
So they look for that little unicorn, that guy who has criminal law experience, who can read Japanese, and who's barred. Mm-hmm. Because as somebody mentioned, I think Jonathan mentioned this at the cybersecurity conference, that lawyers can get disbarred for leaking information, but translators, they don't really face a big penalty.
Yeah, it's not as big of a risk.
Yeah, and so there was, and I don't know the case, so I'm not really hiding the ball here, but there was a case, and I think it was product liability, where a company was using translators to go through their documents, and a translator found something and said, wow, I want to share this with the Wall Street Journal or something, the world.
Yeah.
And they did. And the worst you can do with a translator is fire them and say, you'll never work for us again.
Sure, yeah.
But an attorney is like, well, you're fired and we're going to complain to your state bar, So,
yeah, exactly. There goes your livelihood.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. And now you have student loans and no income. Of course. And you have to explain to everybody you meet that what a JD means.
Exactly. Yeah.
You change your LinkedIn from Esquire to JD.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
People are gonna ask questions.
I can put a legal flair on this job.
I can spin this.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't want to hide the lead. Eventually, the DOJ comes in the picture here.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets interesting.
It's very interesting. Yeah. So this was barely 6 months after I got the GC position. So speaking of baptism by fire, the first taste of the DOJ request that we received was earlier in the year in 2017. So a bit of a backstory here. Trump was inaugurated in January of 2017.
Okay.
And our company, DreamHost, we hosted a website that was called, it was disruptj20.org, I think. And DisruptJ20 was an organization that was protesting Trump's inauguration.
Okay.
So the main website was run by the organization. It was essentially like almost a news website where they would report on the happenings of the Trump protests.
Okay.
There were also some tidbits of info about where to go to protest, to legally protest, information being shared back and forth between website organizers. On the back end, they had a lot of content, a lot of press coverage, a lot of photos, pictures, unpublished blog posts, information about the protests that were taking place in January. Right. So those were our customers. No illegal content, nothing on the website that would be a red flag. But DOJ came knocking, and they initially served us with a subpoena for some information about the website.
Okay.
Now, you have to keep in mind, web hosts deal with this kind of stuff on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I mean, we get hundreds of these a year, maybe thousands in terms of like legal inquiries, right? Because the core business model of web hosting is that all of your content resides on someone's servers, unless you're self-hosting and you have, server racks at your home, which 99% of people don't.
Yeah.
So your stuff sits on a company's servers. And that's how we operate as a business. And so we often get law enforcement or private companies or private attorneys who come knocking on our door and they want information. Now, DreamHost, being different from most other web hosts, we are extremely strict when it comes to protocol. So I would say that an average of maybe 60 to 80% of initial requests we receive from law enforcement or private actions are rejected. and not for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
We have a full team that vets these court orders and these requests, and you would not believe how many of them are either stale, as in they're dated in the past, or they're overbroad, where the law enforcement's asking for everything you have about everyone on every server.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they'll just completely miss the target. They'll send us a subpoena and it's for Google or for somebody else, and they're like, "Hey, Google, produce."
Yep.
And
Sorry.
I'll be like, "Yeah, hey, Google, produce," but that's not us. But you can ask Google whatever you want.
Are they just using a form letter?
Yeah.
And they're replacing Google with DreamHost and Apple and Samsung and okay.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, we'll often get orders where they consider us an ISP, like an internet service provider, which we are not, or a telecom company. They're like, "Hey, turn over all of your phone logs," and we're like, "We don't do that." But my point is,
and it's very necessary to be precise as well, right?
Of course.
I mean, this is the whole thing about going through law school and interning and clerking and all this is like details.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So it's almost kind of frightening that a 3-letter agency would send you a letter addressed to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder. And so one of the career tracks is if you want to be a big prosecutor, a DA or a general counsel or an AG, is you intern at an agency like the DOJ.
Right.
So it makes me wonder if they're using interns to send out these letters, law students or somebody.
It's certainly possible. And I think most of them have agents. They could be junior agents that handle these, but it's possible. But
and by the way, not to slag on the DOJ. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. We can slag on them. But
they're just people, right?
They are just people.
It's funny. I was at an event with the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and there was a gentleman next to me. He's in a suit, and they were going to talk about the FBI and the DOJ. And I usually knew all the people at the American Chamber, right? And I sat down next to this guy, and I was like, "Hey, I heard somebody from the FBI is going to be here." He's like, "Yeah, that's what I heard." And they introduced, it was the guy sitting next to me. It was him. He was just being coy. He's like, "Yeah, that's what I heard too."
That's what I heard, yeah. I wonder who he is. Yeah.
But and I guess if I'd asked him, like, "Hey, are you the speaker?" He would have said yes, But it's a small round table, and so you're all sitting, like there's nobody at the front of the room. It's just a round table.
Yeah.
So he just sat where anybody else would sit, right? So it's funny. And I just realized, like, and then he talked, like, afterward we had a coffee and he talked about his wife and children. I was like, oh, he's just a regular guy.
Yeah.
He just got a job at a place that says DOJ on his business card, or FBI,
Right.
But they're just regular guys, you know? And so
they're just like us. Look, we have a very strong working relationship. I know many FBI agents, DOJ agents. We know a ton of them. And back when we had in-person offices, we would meet with them in person often and just like have a very friendly conversation. I mean, half the time we would be talking about cars or snowboarding or something that was like in a picture in my office. And so, yeah, of course, they're very down-to-earth people. I think.
And that's better too, because if you're in an adversarial relationship with somebody, you can still be friendly, right?
Exactly.
And if you have that rapport with them, if you know the guy likes Mustangs, or fishing, fly fishing, then you have something, like there's kind of a basis to it. It's not just like, I need the documents. No, you can't have them. Get out of my office. It's more like, hey, dude, you been fishing lately? Yeah. Oh, by the way, I sent you guys this request. How's that going?
Exactly.
And so.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. And 99% of the time, that's how it always goes, except for this case.
Except. So no longer bearing the lead. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so I guess I could start off with this little example for whoever's listening. So imagine I send you a link on your phone to a really interesting news article. And imagine it's a group chat, right? So maybe there's like 10 of us in there just talking to each other. And imagine I send that link, and so everyone clicks on that link. And it's a news article. It's a story from a website discussing something that's happening in current events, right?
Okay.
These days, it could be a story about some Ukrainian situation. Yeah. It could be something about the Aflac Japan breach that just happened a few days ago, right? It could be anything. But imagine you click on that link, read the story, and now imagine that the DOJ asks a company for all of that information about who you are, who clicked on the story.
Everybody who visited that news site, right?
Yes. So imagine a wide net being cast and trying to gather information about everyone who clicked on that link and read that story.
Just because I got it
Just
from
because
a
you got
friend.
it.
Whoa.
You may have zero involvement in whatever the subject matter is, but you've clicked on the link and you've read it. And by nature of how these things work, when you visit a website, when you have logs that are being kept, which as a matter of normal course of business are often kept and rewritten. But by that very nature of business, your information is stored somewhere because you read this article and you clicked on that link.
You're making me want to throw away my phone.
I don't know if they make like tinfoil hat cases for phones. So it's like
the Faraday cage, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, sorry, and I keep interrupting. I'm sorry, but you reminded me, and I think I mentioned this to another guest. So sorry if you guys have heard this story already. When I was in Copenhagen to see family, and we went to castles and restaurants, and the restaurant scene there is insane. It's so good.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and just a beautiful place. If you don't go in the winter, like don't go in the winter, it's too cold. If you go there, I think I went in May. It was beautiful. But I had my phone and I had it on airplane mode because I didn't want to get dinged for like data charges, right? And then I come back to Japan, put my phone on, I start, getting my phone and text messages and emails, and I look at my photos and like, I forget what castle we were at. And I go through the pictures, they were all geotagged correctly. It's like, wait a second, I was on airplane mode.
Yeah.
But my phone knew exactly where I was.
Right. Location services were still working.
All times.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I can just imagine with a benign little product like a phone, now somebody sends me a link, I tap it or click on it, I go to a website, and we used to troll people during law school. There was a website you could send. It was just a simple flash website. And you send it by chat, and they'd open it up, and it would just start flashing, right, like a police light in their face, and if the room is dark, it lights up the whole room. So we would troll people with that, or you would Rickroll somebody, right?
Oh yeah.
Rickrolling is where you send somebody a Rick Astley video. I think the song is "Never Gonna Give You Up." It's very popular in the '80s. To Rickroll somebody is to troll them by sending them a link and saying, "Hey, check out this news article." When they click on it, the song starts, right? So you can get trolled, you can get Rickrolled, or somebody could send you something that's like some kind of controversial. It could be something about the pandemic. It could be something about war. It could be something dirty, naughty pictures, right? Sure. And you think, okay, I'm going to see something about Twitter. I want to read about Elon Musk, and you click on it, and all of a sudden you're at some website you never would have gone to on your own. But now they, in quotes, know that you've been to that site.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's the worry, right? When you see a request like that. But that was the key issue that kind of led us to what turned out to be a ridiculously huge story for DreamHost and for the world in general. But to kind of give the quick TLDR here of the timeline, that subpoena was originally sent for some information about the website.
Okay.
Which the scope was very limited, and whatever we produced was extremely limited and proper under the legal channels. So it could be, for example, it could be for any other customer or someone, it could be like contact information of the customer, billing information, whatever it may be. If it's a proper order, if we've vetted it, it's not overbroad, it's not expired, and it seems legitimate. And we always verify when it comes from law enforcement too, or other parties, just to make sure it's not, fake or anything like that. But so it was, as long as it's proper, we go through the channels, and we'll give a very limited production. And we almost always have a more limited production than what they ask for, because that's the nature of our company. We value people's privacy, and as far as we legally can, we will fight to protect people's data. And I say that just to kind of have a quick side conversation here, because many web hosts, especially in the United States, and many other countries, are far more eager than they should be to turn over
Mm.
information when things like this happen. It could be because they are just afraid of government
Ah,
entities. And so a paper slams on your desk from the FBI,
mm.
you're freaking out, right?
That's
And then,
scary.
yeah, and you don't
Yeah.
want to fight back or question
No,
anything. So
no,
many
no.
companies turn over tons of information.
Mm.
Um, and I'll get to that point a little bit later
Sure,
too.
sure.
But
And could it be cost too? I mean, the cost to fight,
of
because
course,
you're up against this behemoth that seems to have unlimited resources, even though they
yeah,
don't, right? But they seem to have unlimited financial resources to fight you, and you're a company trying to make a profit.
right, right, exactly.
How much of your bottom line do you want to spend fighting this request, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually a question that came up during this case for us as well.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so fast forward to summer of 2017,
hmm.
and justice again comes knocking on our door, this time with a search warrant.
Oh,
And this warrant is about the same website. It's Disrupt J20.
hmm,
So again, the website covering Trump's protests, the
hmm,
inauguration
hmm.
protests, and kind of also organizing protests.
Hmm.
And so this time we get hit with a search warrant, but the search warrant wants every single piece of info and data that we have anywhere on our servers about that website.
Wow.
And this is where we start worrying, because
Hmm.
I looked at the scope of the information and I noticed that not only is there a ton of customer info, which is the person who owns the website, right,
Hmm.
and pays for the website and has all their files, but like I said, so many logs. We had
Yeah.
over 1 point, I think 2 or 1.3 million IP addresses
Whoa.
only belonging to website visitors. So going back to the story of clicking on a link, that
Yeah.
means we had that many IP addresses logged on our servers
Yeah.
belonging to the devices and the people who read these stories and
Oh.
visited the website. And not only that, I mentioned earlier we had a lot of media, like videos, photos
Mm.
of people who were covering the protests.
Ah.
So think of like press, the freedom of press,
Yeah.
and think of
Yeah.
these huge companies,
Hmm.
huge publishers, and
Yeah.
who have content, and they film things and they document things and photos and pictures. And
Well, and then also, I mean, with a picture, uh, if there's a picture of me at a protest and saying, "Oh, this is Tracy. He's the organizer of the Disrupt J20 protest," and then I go back to my regular life and I forget all about. Okay, yeah, I was an activist for a year. No, okay, he's president. Let's just deal with it. And I got to go back to the factory. I got to go back to the, to my sales job, whatever. And I'm no longer an activist, but my IP address is, and my picture is on the website as the organizer or a speaker at this protest.
right, exactly.
So they wanted pictures and everything, right? So,
And the scary part is there were the pictures and all the content that was already published on the website, so that you could see it as a viewer.
yeah.
But there were also many files that were unpublished, so they were being stored on the servers. They were being stored, but they were not
Yep.
published yet, either by choice or hadn't gotten to that point yet.
Hmm.
We even had a lot of press related stories, like draft stories,
Ah,
that were being saved on the servers but hadn't been published yet,
wow.
which included a lot of information about the protest and participants and all that, right?
And I'm sure this search warrant said everything, which
Everything,
includes drafts, unpublished
everything.
photos.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we took the usual step in these situations, and we contacted the DOJ,
Hmm.
and we contacted the agents, and I gave them a full rundown of the info without actually exposing the underlying info. But we said,
Yeah.
listen, we'll give you the usual information, right, that is legally obtainable in these sorts
Hmm.
of situations. But I have a ton of data. There are other things here that are unrelated to this order, and we are not going to be producing anything out of the scope of what we think is appropriate.
Hmm.
And we got hit with a request again saying, no, you need to produce everything you have on your servers, including ABC, everything that you have, including logs.
Wow.
And
That's the scary part is the log.
the
Yeah.
logs, right? And so what was even more disturbing was we went back again and said, let's just clarify something here.
Mhm.
The logs you specifically requested are visitor logs, so they have nothing to do with the majority of people who
Yeah.
are, these are people who are just, like you said, clicking on a link,
Yeah.
right? And I said, to be clear,
Mhm.
are you asking me formally that you are demanding these logs?
Mhm.
And the answer was yes.
But that's crazy because what if, for example, I'm not really that political, but let's say I'm a Trump supporter and my friend from high school says, "Hey, we got to stop this." They send me a link and I see this disrupt J20. No, I want him to be president, and I just close it.
Yeah.
But I've already been logged as a visitor,
Yep.
so that puts me in the same bucket as everybody along the spectrum who just doesn't like him, doesn't like the mean tweets, doesn't like his hair, wanted Hillary Clinton to be president, or somebody who wants to really disrupt or maybe like flatten the tires of the limousine, or worse. We're all in the same bucket now, right?
All in the same boat. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so that's where we started to worry.
Mm.
And we reviewed the situation. I had outside counsel also assisting us in the matter. So telling us, what their thoughts are on the scope and how this is going to look. And DreamHost made a decision internally that we don't necessarily agree with this, and we don't want to cave and hand over the info, nor does that mesh with our company values.
Mm.
So what do? We need to push back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we did. We very casually and politely told the Department of Justice that we would not be producing this info.
Mm.
Right? We would give them whatever we think is responsive and appropriate,
Mhm.
but the rest they're not getting from us.
Mm.
And that rubbed them the wrong way.
I think so. They're not used to that response, right?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're absolutely not. And as a result of that, DOJ filed a motion to compel against DreamHost in DC. So, very long story short, it's basically asking a court to force the company to go ahead and turn over information.
Mm.
Yeah. So, this was a pretty big deal for us.
Yeah.
Internally, I think the company was extremely cautious about how we were doing these things because, first of all, we don't want to be the combative, ridiculous kind of company that just starts things for no reason.
Yeah.
But we felt like this was a legitimate fight, right? A fight for, we called it a fight for the users. Kind of a throwback to the Tron.
Yeah.
Tron line from the movie, right? But
great movie.
Yeah, we actually, if there's a DreamHost blog, if you type in DreamHost DOJ or Fight for the Users, you can read all about this entire story. But this was our fight for the users.
Yeah.
And so we waited for a while and thought maybe, justice would go away, but did not happen. And they came back with the motion to compel. And so, we decided that, okay, we will go ahead and file an opposition to the motion to compel and state the reasons why we think we should not be forced to turn over the information. And that's where it all began.
Yeah. And how were you sleeping at this time?
Actually, not bad. I mean, we had many late nights. I was extremely energized and passionate. So I remember being at our downtown LA office, multiple nights in a row. And the team back then was also staying with me, and we had a few different situations, and we would have whiteboards full of information, and we were just mapping things out. So it was a big deal.
You had the war room set up.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it was great.
And in addition, you're probably dealing with like labor issues. You got a board meeting coming up.
Oh,
you got a building lease that needs to be renewed, and the DOJ is breathing down your neck. So
life wasn't, paused by any means, but this is all happening. Yeah.
Whew.
So, we filed the opposition, and we never expected this to blow up. We had no intention of it being an issue that would be covered worldwide by the press. We had no intention of making a lot of noise about it. We figured it may be cool if a blog writes about the issues, like the First Amendment issues, the legal issues, but by no means was DreamHost ever intent on this being something for PR reasons. And the exact opposite happened. So we filed the opposition. I believe it was, I want to say it was like a Friday night or something like that, or maybe a Monday night. Went to bed, woke up the next morning. It's like everything seems to be normal. It's 7 a.m. I take a look at my phone. And I peek over to the nightstand, and I'm like, oh, there are a lot of notifications. And I take a look, and I'm like, oh, I have 37 missed calls and double the number of texts and tons of emails. And I'm like trying to stare with half of one of my eyes open.
Still waking
and I'm like,
up there.
What's going on? So take a look, and it's our VP of PR from our company. And he's like, you need to wake up right now and shower and put on your best suit and get dressed. A limo is going to pick you up soon. You're going to be on Anderson Cooper in an hour and a half. You're doing Rachel on CNN.
Rachel Maddow?
Rachel Maddow on CNN. You're going to be doing MSNBC right after that. And then we have you booked at this PR event, and then this is going to happen. And make sure you review your notes. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so our opposition was picked up, and we had basically gone viral overnight with this story, which was really interesting because the actual case, the search warrant and everything associated with it, there were no gag orders or non-disclosure orders associated with them.
Of course, right? You checked that first.
And actually, I confirmed directly with the agents. I even asked them before. I said, is there any NDA associated with this or non-disclosure? And they said no. And I was like, okay.
Somebody missed a checkbox there.
Right? Yeah. I mean, even when we asked them, they were like, no. I'm like, okay, well, heard it directly from you. So
I bet there are now.
Yeah,
I bet with this little leapfrog game, right? The whack-a-mole game we play with law. I'm sure it's in there now.
Yeah. So basically, from that day on, which was, I think this was late July, I don't remember having a 10-minute window where we didn't have a press interview or some sort of coverage or some podcast or video that we were doing talking about this case. Everything exploded. And as you can imagine, for a good reason, every news outlet was correctly concerned about this, right?
Sure.
Rightly so. I mean, all this information being out in the open, being requested by the Department of Justice, and innocent individuals who just click on a link and read about something, all that information being turned over. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. And that's the argument we made too, which was, listen, you with this one order, you are going to have a profound effect on people's First Amendment rights. You're going to be affecting their right to exercise their First Amendment freedoms, to exercise freedom of press. There are so many different things that are going to be triggered by this, not to mention the press-related issues when it comes to privacy and disclosing sources, right? I mean, as I mentioned, there were unpublished news articles and media that were not publicly made public on the website.
Yeah.
So we mentioned all of that, and we filed publicly and said this is going to be a huge issue, and we need to fight this. So, in a few short weeks after that, between prepping and getting everything ready, there was a hearing scheduled in D.C. So in D.C. Superior Court, in front of a chief judge, Judge Morin.
Okay.
And so we were scheduled for a hearing there. So we flew to D.C. And I remember checking into the hotel and putting about 1,000 pages of documents just all over the bed. And I think I got there a few days before the hearing just to prep and get everything ready. And so we were practicing everything that was going to be argued in front of court. Our outside counsel also came. Luckily enough, they're from a big firm, and so he had an office location directly across the street as well. So
nice.
Late nights with him, working things out, strategizing. It was an amazing experience.
I bet.
And it constantly was on the news. I mean, my friends were sending me links every half an hour. Oh my God, you're on TechCrunch. Oh my God, you're on CNBC. The Wall Street Journal wrote about you on the front page. Like DreamHost's name is here. It's there.
Mm.
DreamHost was everywhere, and we were even getting. I mean, my parents would send me, snapshots of headlines on the BBC News or on Fox News or whatever it
Wow.
was. They were all over the place. Like, so this was getting so much press coverage, and it was on the daily news, primetime news, so much that 48 hours before the hearing, while I was pacing back and forth in the hotel room, practicing my arguments, I glanced over to the TV and I see that DOJ has pulled back from the IP address request.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Whoa. How did that feel?
It was unreal. I mean, I remember the second I saw that, my phone also started blowing up, and I was speaking to our PR manager and our CEO, and I was like, oh my God, they actually pulled back. And they were under so much pressure from the press that they finally released a statement and said, no, we don't want this information. We are not after the IP addresses, so we're not going to follow through with that request.
Wow.
Right?
Those are the moments you live for as a lawyer. Like, it's just like, there's no words for that. Just incredible. Yeah.
Pure euphoria, right? Just kind of thinking that this entire fight is paying off.
Yeah.
And
you've done the right thing.
And it's the right thing.
It's not like you got somebody who spilt their coffee and wants to get $1 million out of Denny's or McDonald's or whoever it was, right? But you're actually fighting for, like, First Amendment rights.
It's not a sham legal issue. It's a moral. It's a moral argument.
And you're not, and you're a very good looking guy. Like, I was kind of embarrassed to take a selfie with you because people are gonna be like, "Hey, who's your good looking friend?" You're like, but you're not actually seeking attention. You're just doing the right thing.
It's a core value, right? Both of DreamHost, but one of my core values.
Yeah,
I think the fighting the good fight, standing up for people, and just calling out people who want to, kind of bypass legal process and do things that are not correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got me. See, like, people ask me why I went into law because there's one thing people look at is, the title. Another thing people look at is the money and that stuff. But I remember watching To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I made my decision to go to law school. Is to fight for the people who can't fight for themselves.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. I'm getting a little emotional here, but like that really touches my soul. It's like, doing the right thing.
Yeah. And you know how you're doing the right things, Tracy? It's like throughout the ordeal and even before and after the hearing, which I'll talk about in a sec, but we were not alone in this fight. And before the hearing, I was approached by the ACLU, the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, many other organizations that fight for digital privacy and people's privacy in general and constitutional rights. They all fully supported our cause and wanted to help. So we had a ton of support coming from these organizations who were offering us free advice, who were offering us connections, who were offering insight and different, strategy ideas.
And one thing that happens here too is, sorry to keep interrupting.
No.
But this is a fascinating conversation. Like, I rarely get to talk with other lawyers about these really deep topics. But you can get an amicus brief too, right? You get a professor.
Oh yes,
right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So these assists you got, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had these assists. We had it was a really quick break.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I'm actually trying to.
We were talking about the ACLU. We're talking about people writing amicus briefs for you. We were talking about this blowing up in the news. You're on TV every day, and then the DOJ
Yeah,
decides to pull back.
exactly. So they pull back on the IP addresses, at least on that. And then uh, that's what I was mentioning. It's that the support was not just internal, right? And it wasn't just something that was limited to DreamHost or even to the tech community. We had the ACLU backing us up on these things. We had the ACLU supporting us on this initiative. They were guiding us through these strategy calls, and EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a very big digital rights activist group, was behind us. We had an open letter written by um, dozens of tech companies, some of the biggest tech companies in the world, by senators and congressmen from the United States, who signed off on an open letter to then AG Jeff Sessions about the case, about DreamHost and the situation.
Wow.
And so that was sent on our behalf, and all these big companies like the Googles and Apples of the world, and congressmen, and all these names you hear in the news were publicly giving their support to DreamHost, which was a fascinating.
That's unprecedented, basically, right?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was such a proud moment for the company, and it really energized us because it kind of, we knew we were fighting the good fight, the correct position to be in, but seeing all this public support really just kind of verified that for us and said, you know what, we are doing the right thing.
And there is something that happens when you're doing the right thing. It seems like you get this, like somebody puts a turbo on your engine, right?
Exactly.
Or a supercharger. It's like you get this extra energy you didn't know you had.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's I wouldn't say that it would have been different if we didn't have the public support, but certainly it was a huge help, right? Because not only is the story getting more attention, but like you said, it's also kind of it's confirming that you are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the IP addresses. When they pulled back from that, there were many questions about whether DreamHost was going to drop the fight, right? Because they're like, oh, well, the IPs are gone, they're off the table. Are you going to pull back from this? And our answer was no, we're not, because it's not just the IP addresses. There are many other First Amendment issues. There are very many. There are many freedom of press issues. There are multiple things that we still need to address in court.
Okay.
And so we did. On August 24th, I believe, we went to the DC Superior Court. I walked in with our outside counsel in the morning, and we were greeted by tons of press. Kind of unbelievable. We walked up to the courtroom and went inside, and I noticed that there were tons of chairs in the courtroom, and half of them, which I would say were dozens of seats, it was a huge courtroom, were reserved for press. So we were staring at these seats, and every single one of them had name labels on them, and it was like, 5 for CNN, 5 for MSNBC, 5 for Fox, Washington Post, like all of the, like everybody was there.
Wow.
And we went through the hearing. We shook hands with the U.S. attorneys that were involved in the case. The judge comes in. We made our arguments. He reviewed everything, and it was fascinating to be in that courtroom. And I'll tell you, Tracy, I mean, kind of zooming back out from all the press and the attention and everything. For me, this was an intense moment.
I guess.
Because just having been minted the GC of this company and having full faith of the company behind me, I was still very much, green in the area,
and very young.
And very young, yeah. I think I was 27 or 28 years old. And so,
fighting the DOJ.
Fighting the DOJ
at 27. How many people can say that?
Yeah, and so I was calmer than I thought I would be, but still very much, nervous on the inside. But we went through the hearing, and it was unreal to hear how positive Chief Judge Morin was in support of DreamHost's arguments.
Mm.
So we left that hearing, and uh, Chief Judge Morin basically required the DOJ to come up with a minimization plan. He was very critical of
Mm.
the orders that they had sent us, and so multiple protections were put in place. The entire production had to be overseen by a neutral court third party. So,
Mm.
somewhat like you hear about the special masters and these things
Yeah.
that happen with Trump right now, for example,
Mhm.
right? But the court basically instructed the DOJ that they're not going to get this data directly from us. It's going to go to the court first, and the court's going to review the documents. And in addition to all that, not only were we allowed to redact all identifying information about the personal identities of people that were involved,
Mm.
but we also uh, uh, did not have to disclose any information where the DOJ could not show probable cause for requesting it. And on top of that, the information that was going to be turned over would then be sifted through and reviewed, and justice would have to make a very specific appeal to request what exactly they needed from that. And so all of these protections were put into place. I think the final order was a few pages long, and the majority of that was the limitations the court put in place on the DOJ to limit all of the data that they were going to get from this case. So the end result of all this, which actually took a few weeks after the hearing for everything to work out, the final order was probably, I would say, 10% of what the original was.
Wow.
And
that's
the only
a big win.
Absolutely,
Sorry.
yeah. And the only things that were produced to the court, not even to the DOJ, but to the court, were very specific tidbits of information that justice had true probable cause to show for. For example, if the protests had, let's say, turned into riots, and the riot caused property damage, like a limo was burned down, or a store was vandalized, or something had happened related to a criminal charge, then if we had any identifying information that may have been linked to that case, we were asked to provide that. And I can tell you right now, Tracy, I mean, without unveiling information, I can't remember any of that being more than, one or two single lines of info.
Wow.
So
they wanted they wanted the kitchen sink, and they ended up getting
practically nothing.
Incredible.
Yeah. It was one of those dreamy stories, right? Like it's almost like a movie.
Yeah.
Where you have this like David versus Goliath situation, and we decided to stand up, and we fought, and we won.
That's amazing. Well, you're in LA. Have you thought of writing a book?
No, not yet. If I can find time to do anything, I may choose something different.
Get a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan says you have to narrate the book.
Oh,
It's got to be in your voice. Yeah.
Okay, so, I can do that.
Yeah, you do have a good voice.
Oh, thank you.
You're very lucky. Yeah. So if this law thing doesn't work out, you can make some commercials or do your own podcast.
Yeah, seriously, I need to consider that. Yeah.
I'm joking. It looks like the law thing's worked out for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
As far as that too, you have your own firm.
I do. Yeah.
Tell me about that. That's fascinating.
Sure. So from the DOJ case, I started getting a ton of inquiries. People would come to me and say, "Hey, I've got this similar situation, or I have this other legal case, or there's something that we need help with. Can you represent us?" And my answer to all of them was no. I'm in-house counsel. I don't do moonlighting. I don't do these kinds of things. So over time, though, I noticed that there were so many inquiries, and all organic. Like I've never marketed in my life. I've never tried to advertise my services, but I thought to myself, maybe this is an opportunity to gain more experience, because law is my passion. Law, business, tech, that's stuff I live and breathe for. And if I'm not growing, if I'm not learning 24/7, I feel like I'm stagnant.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, in-house is already an amazing gig, and DreamHost is teaching me so much, but if I can augment that.
But also, after you fight the DOJ, what's next? Right? How does it get any more exciting? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you go, now you have your own private practice then.
Thrill seeking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
have my own private practice. I set up a firm, and yeah, I take cases on the side, and I'll
Mm.
do anything from very big business litigation against major tech companies in the United States, all the way to cross-border data privacy
Mm.
and dealing with European transactions, GDPR,
Oh yeah.
uh, a lot of different companies that need assistance that don't necessarily understand the laws that are involved, or they just need help
Mm.
getting a strategy or an
Yeah.
in-house plan set up. So I'll do a lot of that. And I've recently been dabbling in copyright infringement as well.
Nice.
We have a case against The Weeknd
Mm.
that we filed last year for music copyright infringement.
Interesting.
Yeah,
What can you tell me about that?
sure. It's a very interesting case. I mean, if you Google the case, you can actually read about it. But
Okay.
there's my clients had a song that they had produced themselves, created themselves, and they shared it with The Weeknd.
Mm.
And unfortunately, the song was then copied and created, and he has a substantially similar song that is almost exactly the same. That's now a major hit song of his, and so
Mm.
that's the fight we have there, which is again another moral fight, if you will.
Mm.
Content, personal creations, things that belong to others,
Mm.
should not be blatantly copied without
Mm.
giving those people credit.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're pursuing in this case.
That's fascinating. So, what do you think is next for Chris?
Good question. I think I've got those two bases covered.
Yeah.
Uh, I've as you know, data privacy, cybersecurity is such
Mm.
an ever changing area of law and tech.
I remember. I think last time we met a couple years ago, you talked about the EULA, end user license agreements,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
that put the fear of God into me. You said when people install an app on their phone and they just, the two biggest lies on the internet are what, like, yes, I'm single, and yes, I read the user license agreement. um, those that story scared the hell out of me when you told that a couple years ago at the cybersecurity summit in Tokyo, and more recently, people are talking about TikTok, and I'm not on TikTok. I've seen a couple videos of TikTok that usually there's a link on Twitter or something, but um, we don't need to go into specific companies or apps. But where are you on that today? Is that still a topic of concern? Or
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, if you think about this, everything you do these days has a EULA or a terms of service attached to it, or a privacy policy, right? And because of GDPR, CCPA, all these different privacy acts, companies are required to do this. But actually, maybe this is a topic for another show, Tracy.
sure,
But
sure,
I don't think the the outward facing image of what is happening actually reflects true changes for end users. I truly think there are still very big issues with data privacy and cybersecurity,
okay,
and different things that purport to protect end user data. I seriously think there are many holes to still be
mm,
addressed. But to your
yeah,
point, I mean, how many times have you downloaded an app or accepted some, whatever it may be? Like, you've gone to an application, or you're trying to play Call of Duty,
yeah.
and you're hit with like a 40-page terms of service, right? And it says like,
And the guys are going to be in the room in 5 minutes. Right?
yeah. I mean, I was joking about this a few days ago, but my buddies and I, it's been years since we've played video games. But every now and then, when their kids are asleep and
Yep.
my work is done, and we have like a 1 hour window
Mm,
in a few months, and we're like, guys, let's get online and play some Call of Duty or something.
yeah.
And we, after the 6 hour update, you
Yep.
finally open the game, and then you're hit with like a 40-page privacy policy
Oh
in a
wow.
video game. And I don't think I know a single person who actually sits there and reads any of that. But there's
No.
40 pages of terms and things they're telling you they're going to do with your data,
Hmm.
right?
Well, because if you're playing Call of Duty, I mean, you can use your microphone, so you're talking, and a lot of times you can also do a camera on your face too, right?
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. Like, what is triggered by a game? Like, why is there a privacy
Yeah.
policy related to a game?
And then
Right?
what are people going to hear in the background if they hear, if my wife's out of town and my girlfriend's over, like, hey, you guys done playing yet?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a totally different voice that may get recorded or seen or whatever. Like, or somebody could, what do they call it? SWAT me.
sure,
Somebody could
yeah,
SWAT me, right?
yeah. It's I think Microsoft for Xbox issued uh, something like this a few years ago,
Mm,
or a couple of years ago actually, where they mentioned that voice chat
mm.
is potentially going to be monitored for not only, I guess the premise was, well, we need to monitor because hate speech is a thing and
Uh,
abuse is a thing. And so we're
mm.
going to monitor and we can potentially ban you based on
Especially
what you're saying.
teenagers playing video games. You get killed, you get shot by a sniper and start swearing at them.
Just think back to the days we used to play games, and it's like, oh man, that's a
Embarrassing.
yeah, it's like a stepping stone to becoming an adult. I think
Yes,
it's
yes. Well, I'm just glad, and I've said this a million times, that I'm so glad that everything stupid that I did was before the internet. I graduated the teenage years
yeah,
before Facebook was a thing.
yeah,
So anything dumb or embarrassing or stupid or regretful that I've done has all been um, in the past.
good. You're lucky,
But not that I've done anything crazy. It's just like,
right?
maybe just do something stupid or dumb or teenager ish,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah,
and also here's one thing I remember. So I worked at a call center during college, and there's always that thing is, when press one for, tech support, press two for, para español, pídeme dos, right? But they say that your call may be monitored for training purposes or something like that. That doesn't mean while you're talking to tech support. That means the whole call.
hmm
So there have been people who got in trouble or got their license suspended or got um, a phone call from the authorities or a knock on the door because while they're on hold, they said something that implicated them in a crime or something
sure.
like, oh yeah, the briefcase full of drugs over there, that's all heroin and fentanyl. Like, put that in the back of the car, get the guns, and I'll meet you after I get off the phone with tech support. And guess what? They're in prison now.
Yeah,
So what I always do, and maybe I don't even need to do this, but what I always do is, yeah, you mute yourself, or they say, please hold for the next available operator. I say, I just love dealing with this company. They've always been so good to me, and it puts me in the right mood too, right?
sure.
Right? It
Yeah,
sets the intention. You're like, I love these guys, man. And every time at my big corporate job, um, you've always seen those people, and it's a meme now. It's a cliche now. The person who is on a Zoom call with no pants on, or even worse,
mm,
and then they think the phone call's in, and they're like, I freaking hate that guy. Every phone call I ended, I would cover up my camera, hit disconnect, and say, I love my job.
nice.
And that's and if the camera's still running, the microphone is still on, that's all they heard. I love my job.
That's a,
It also sets that intention too, right? It's
of
like,
course.
maybe I don't today, but for the most part I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like an affirmation. So I'm really careful about that because that call center experience and people saying stupid stuff when they're on hold. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, think about it. Everything these days is being recorded
Yep.
around you. I mean, we've all we all have smartphones. We all
Hmm.
have like smart home devices, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, my Google Home gets triggered like 15 times a day when I
Yes.
don't want it to, and it often happens when I'm on a call, right?
Hmm.
Or I mean, you they obviously tell you that number one, it's rare that humans are reviewing the captured voice tidbits, and number two, they'll
The
never use that information for anything other than improving their products and services, which is the biggest sham line ever used
the
in the history
key
of
phrase,
yeah,
captured.
captured.
Oh, and by the way, for business purposes, right? So if you keep something, now help me out here with evidence law. If you keep something for the purposes of litigation, it's automatically suspect. But if you keep something for records for purposes of business purposes, it can be used for litigation, right?
It
Help me
could
out
be.
here.
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
been a while since I did evidence law, but
Right. So business records, you mean,
yeah,
in a normal course of
yeah,
business, sure, that could
mhm,
be used in litigation.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's why they say this call can be used for training purposes. So we're keeping this call in the normal course of business. We're not keeping it just in case you decide to sue us.
Right.
Oh, you decided to sue us. Well, we kept this for purposes of training, which
Yeah.
is normal course of business. Now we can use it for litigation.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe those, I don't know.
Well, no, it's certainly something to
Hmm.
consider, right? And I think there's what they tell you on the surface, which is,
Yep.
we're recording you, we have all this info. I mean, like I said, everything is documented these days.
Yeah.
But then you have like the flip side of these issues where companies will do things and not tell you about them. So fascinating. A few years ago, I think I spoke about this at the last Tokyo
Hmm.
Summit, but um, American Airlines for a while had
Hmm.
very tiny cameras that were embedded in the seat right in front of you that were
Oh my
positioned
gosh.
just below the TV,
Oh,
the
so you're
monitor.
looking right at
So
it.
you're looking right at it. And while I don't think they were formally used, or at least they say that it wasn't formally put into practice
Hmm.
and used on the planes, the intention was to study facial behavior and to see different cues
Mm.
from people's faces. Maybe it's in terms of happiness
Hmm.
or whether you're tired or certain
Yeah.
different things, anything. But a little
Mm.
creepy when you think about it. That like that
Yeah.
one hole you noticed on the seat back is
Yeah.
actually a camera. Or for example, another one, I forget the name of the company. I want to say it was I want to say it was Nest, but I'm not 100% sure. I may be
Okay.
wrong there. But one of these home surveillance companies where you
Hmm.
can buy your own kit and put an alarm in place at home
Yeah.
had a microphone embedded in one of the sensors, and they never
Mm.
disclosed that. It may have been Google, actually. I'm not sure, but the microphone was never disclosed. And some tech repair guy
Hmm.
basically ended up opening up one of these one day and realized that there's a microphone, there's a mic in here. And it became a huge, huge story. And the company came
Wow.
out and said, listen, number one, it's not connected to anything, so we're not recording. And also, this was going to be used in the future to perhaps detect the sound of glass breaking so that we could better serve your needs in case there's a break in and we
Sure.
could, trigger the alarm. And it's like,
So
okay, well,
so we spent extra money on parts, which decreased our bottom line
yeah.
for something we might use in the future.
I mean, Tracy, you and I are sitting in a hotel room right now. It's
Yeah.
as if I turned over a lamp and I
Hmm.
find a mic bugged, and I tell the hotel, and the hotel is like, "Oh, it's only there so that in the future we may, process your voice and help you sleep better at night." Or I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. It's something that
Oh,
ridiculous, right?
have you been? And I know we're running short on time here. I was at the Andaz Hotel in South Korea
Oh
a
wow,
couple of
yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
and it had just opened 2 weeks before. I was there for the I forget it was I think LexisNexis held the event, and it was I forget the event, but it was international lawyers, and thank you LexisNexis. It was a great event, and they had a service in the room. It was a lot like Siri. And when you go in the room, you could set it for Chinese, English, Japanese, of course Korean,
Mm,
a couple other languages, and you could tell it open the drapes,
okay.
start the bath, uh, play some relaxing music.
Mm,
And I just thought like, okay, the microphone is always on. It's waiting for my voice command. I think you could trigger it with tapping something on the wall and say, hey, open the drapes. But I thought, okay, the microphone is there. That means if I'm on a business call, they could somebody in the basement could be monitoring what I'm saying, or it could be captured or something, which means it could also be tapped. So
sure.
somebody finds out that this executive, not me, but some executive from a company is staying there, and they're doing a deal in South Korea, and they happen to make cell phones, so they might be talking to Samsung. I want to know what they're talking about. So he's on the phone in his hotel, or he's discussing it with people in the home office. I want to hear what's going on in that room.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See, this is my creative side. Because when I see like there was a book on writing, and it said if you take Louis L'Amour, who was a Western writer, cowboy movies, cowboy books, and you take Stephen King, they're going to get two completely different scenarios from a pool of water in the desert. Louis L'Amour says two cowboys go up there and they draw their guns to fight over the water. Stephen King says you go up there, you've been lost in the desert, your car broke down, you go up there and a hand reaches out and grabs you from under the water. So when I hear something, I automatically think of a spy story.
Yeah.
So okay, there's something monitoring in my room, there's a microphone. Okay, I'm working on an M&A deal. The opposition is in the basement listening to me. 007 is like tapping into my line and hanging outside my window. And he's going to rappel down like Jackie Chan or something,
Oh, yeah.
That's where my mind goes. I'm crazy that way, but that's why I do this creative stuff. So
it's certainly possible these days. Yeah.
But this is fascinating. So microphones everywhere. I've even heard of those robot vacuums. They had the capability, they had cameras, which of course you need a camera if you're going to be kind of like a Tesla car, right? You don't want to have it run into the wall or, oh, here comes the cat, I better slow down,
Right, yeah.
But the camera is also capturing video and relaying it back to the home base. And so people, I guess, and I don't want to get the wrong company and get in trouble, so I'm not going to say, but it was a robot vacuum company that had grainy pictures, but pictures on their customer databases of the inside of people's homes.
Nice.
And here we go again. I want to find out that, okay, that guy is into electronics, or that guy has a nice watch collection.
Right.
He's got a what's the Rolex, the Mariner, the Submariner?
Sure, yeah.
He's got the Platinum, or he's got that, special one with the green around the edge, right?
Right.
And he's maybe got a couple of other watches and maybe some other things, some diamonds. And I tap his vacuum and find out he's out of town.
Right.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to work.
Yeah.
So that's where my mind goes. But then it gets back to the privacy and DOJ. Like, what if the DOJ taps your vacuum?
Sure.
Think of what Goodfellas would have been like. First of all, they couldn't make it today. They couldn't make that today. No. That's a common Bill Maher statement, is like, oh, remember that movie? Couldn't make that today.
That's true.
It's true for almost all the great movies.
Yeah,
Second of all, if Goodfellas were made today, they'd be tapping Roombas, smartphones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They'd be done in a New York minute.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. The movie would end it after
That's true,
7 minutes. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
Have a nice day.
Yep.
Crime doesn't pay. Because I remember they used to get on the phone and they would have their wife discuss recipes.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess if somebody's tapping your phone and if the first 60 seconds there's nothing substantive, they have to drop off. So the wives would get on and say, hey, that cake you baked the other day, how did you make that? And they start talking, and Joe Pesci's watching his watch. And as soon as like 60 seconds are up, he's like, give me the phone.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but now today, with the cheap price of data storage, you can just capture all this metadata and all this data, voice data. And
yeah, I mean, to your point, you don't even need that sort of, like, it's already out in the open because everything around us is picking up stuff and recording, not by government officials, but just by tech companies.
That's true.
Who may or may not have the best security protocols, right? And so, speaking of breaches and leaks, I mean, look at how much data is being leaked out in the open.
You said Aflac?
Yeah,
recently?
Aflac Japan recently had a breach that exposed cancer patient info, 1.3 million cancer patients. LastPass, the password vault company, had 2 different breach incidents late last year. One of them leading to the unauthorized access and sharing of your password vault, even though it's encrypted and the information may not be easily accessible. But the company that tells you to protect your stuff in a vault ended up experiencing a breach of that vault. So much for
Fort
a
Knox
vault.
got robbed, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's always comforting.
Yeah. Well, it is funny because so much of our lives is online. Everything I do is online. everything I do is online, from e-discovery to podcasting to all this stuff that I do. And I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have internet access,
Yeah.
But it is really frightening. It's also very interesting because, we have we have WebMD, we have Google, we have, or Bing, or whatever you want to use. We can get so much information. And I read a lot of books. I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me.
Oh yeah.
Excellent book. And then
Great.
I got his second one, Never Finished.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Talks about becoming a smoke jumper and jumping into forest fires and stuff. 47 years old with a plate in his leg. Spoiler alert. Sorry, I just gave it up. But I read that. I read it on Kindle. Because if you get the paperback, especially English books in Japan, it's like $30. Kindle's like $5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my Kindle is just full of books like David Goggins and The War of Art and just things like that.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Stephen Pressman fan, So yeah, and if my Mac were to die, the last 10 books that I read that I really enjoyed and I kept notes and I highlighted and made notes, all gone.
Yeah.
So
everything's digital these days.
So we got like 2 minutes. What's the answer? How do we protect ourselves? Take us home.
Take us home. Well, I think so protect yourself. The crucial bit I would say is always stop and think about the number of companies and apps and devices that you integrate with. I mean, you brought up something which is health information, right? But I can't tell you the number of apps and digital health services and COVID testing and vaccination and all this other. Like, think about the number of apps you've been pitched over the last 2-3 years, right? For flying, for airports, vaccinations, like all these things. They all are either government backed websites or apps, right? Run by the government, which in and of itself is a different story and completely scares me because I don't think the government
I'll use a
knows.
word I hate. Problematic.
Absolutely problematic, right? Or they're third parties, but private third parties, right? That have your health information. And so you've probably signed up for a minimum of, I would say, 5 or 10 digital health apps over the last 2-3 years without even remembering them because somewhere someone told you need to log in and create an account.
Yep.
Right? That has your date of birth, your social security number, your height, health your information. Weight. Yeah, I mean, all that kind of PII, in addition to maybe doctor's notes.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe prescription information. Like, there are tons of telehealth websites that log all this info. And while I'm sure they have decent protocols, they're not immune from breaches. So just think about the number of additional data points you've kind of spread out and given info to.
And then, too, like, let's say, for example, like, I'm afraid of Google or I'm afraid of Facebook. But how these companies grow, didn't Google buy Fitbit?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had a Fitbit years ago, and I was very happy because it's just a small company run out of maybe Silicon Valley or someplace like that. And they're not sharing my information with Google or Apple, Well, guess what? Then they got bought, which means they bought all that data.
Right.
And I'm not anti-Google. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of those dumb people who says, well, I haven't done anything wrong until I click on a link. But it's also that I'm not so worried about Fitbit. I wanted to see how many steps I was doing every day.
Right.
And in Tokyo, do a lot of steps. It's great. But yeah, you could have your health information in there. I saw an advertisement. This is crazy, for one of those e-cigarettes that you can link to your smartphone by Bluetooth. And if I were a smoker, I would not want my health insurance company to know how many times I'm using that thing every day.
That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And why would you want to link it to your smartphone anyways? Well, it can tell you how charged it is in case you need to charge it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. That's info I want to be checking so often every day. Yeah.
What?
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But it's just these funny things. So in the States, we have like Boston Dynamics, the robot company, right?
Right.
And those robots freak me out. They're freaky. They have a weird gait.
Yeah.
That constant moving of the legs, and they keep getting better. And some of the videos where they're doing backflips, people say like, "Oh, that's CGI." No, it's not. is real. They're really doing that.
Right.
But they're in America, they say like, oh, this is Boston Dynamics. Look at this awesome robot. In Japan, they're like, look at this cute little robot that uses AI to give you directions around the shopping mall. And so people go up and the thing's got a camera in it,
right,
through the eyes, the forehead. It's looking at you. It's capturing your voice. You're talking to it. Like, hey, where's the bathroom? It'll say, this way, turn right. You can push a button. I think it's in Odaiba, which is a cool place to go shopping. And so it's like English, Korean, Japanese, English, or I just said English twice. Whatever. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
But you can talk to it. And so this is how they get it into society: is they give it a cute logo,
right,
or a character.
Yeah.
Or a pretty face, like a nice young woman's face on the robot, so it's more approachable, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how Japan gets this into everybody's daily life, and saying like, oh, look at this friendly robot. You know, it's going to give you directions around the mall. But it's also, what they don't tell you is there's a camera in this thing, and it's watching everybody that comes in. It's checking their temperature. It's checking their behavior. It's, you know, companies who have problems with shoplifting. They have the cameras, the AI checks patterns and compares it against shoplifters. So if somebody comes in and they go over the cough medicine and then they pick it up and leave, right? Or somebody goes in and they dilly-dally around for too long, security knows to go check that person, see what they're doing. What's this guy up to?
Yeah, yeah.
He's hanging around by the high-ticket items for way too long. And he's not buying anything, and he's, you know, whatever. So they go check on him, you know. But that's where things are these days. So
absolutely.
I'm not sure if we answered the question, how do you protect yourself? But know what's on your phone, right?
Just know what's on your phone. Try to minimize your data footprint. You know, don't sign up for every single app and portal and whatever it may be. Try to kind of reel in your digital footprint. And if you do have outstanding accounts with a lot of these companies, especially health related companies, go ahead and ask them to delete your information, because you're allowed to under most data privacy laws. Okay. You can email them or go through a process, an automated process sometimes. We do this at DreamHost as well, where you can request your data to be deleted. And companies will wipe almost everything other than potentially business-related information they need to keep for a course of business. For example, like keeping some sort of very limited identifier, so that, let's say, if someone fraudulently opens an account and uses fake credit cards, we need to be able to know who that is if they come back and try again in 10 days, right? But you can delete your information. You can request that from companies, and have, you know, just be smart about the info that you give out. Not every app, not every company needs your social security number or your date of birth or full access to your photos and files on your phone. That's another issue, right?
Always scares me.
You download a flashlight on your phone, a flashlight app or a game, and they ask for contacts, or they ask for access to your downloads. And it's like, no, I'm okay, thanks.
Or your contact list, your keyboard.
Yeah, your keystrokes, exactly.
Keystrokes, that scares the hell out of me.
I've seen many apps that ask for that.
Right? Because if I say something like, oh, that guy Chris, I hate that guy, F you, and I think, oh, I shouldn't send that, and I delete it, well, it's already been put in
your
the
keystrokes are logged, because it's not the act of sending it, right? It's the act of literally clicking the key, typing on the key.
Wow, Chris, I could go on about this forever. This is a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
And I feel we just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
I think if I'm in LA soon, and if I can carry this gear around or whatever, I would love to come talk to you. Or if you know, I'm open to do a Zoom. Or if you're, you know, in town next year for the next Tokyo Summit with Saya University.
Yeah.
But this has been a pleasure. And I feel like we could go on for a long time. I really enjoyed it. And I know you got a call very soon. So I'll get out of your hair. But thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Of course. Pleasure's all mine, Tracy. Always good talking to you.